Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the best football insert cards for 1992, the best designs for 1992. As I've been doing these best of for the inserts, this has been a lot of fun for me because I understand the sentiment of thinking that the worst of designs is a lot more fun. I tend to be more of an optimist, and so when I get into the really rich designs that we've got, especially in 1992 for these inserts, I just get really excited because I get to see all of the richness of how they crafted these really cool inserts. And it can be kind of difficult with some of these to narrow it down to just 6 or even 7. So I've been extending some of these best of a little bit beyond that just because there's so much that I want to talk about because I really love the designs of these cards. And so here, this is no exception. I've got 3 that didn't quite make the final list, but I couldn't leave them off. So I'm going to be talking about them, and the first 2 are pretty similar to a certain extent. They are both horizontal cards. I'm talking about the Upper Deck Pro Bowl cards and the Score Dream Team cards. These cards both have kind of different takes. They have 2 images on each, horizontal, but they're wildly different cards. And the Upper Deck Pro Bowl card, this is one that I remember from the time I was really excited about it. In fact, this is one of the first insert sets that I worked to complete, and I was really excited when I did so because, I mean, well, you can already see for the most part. Interestingly, this card has brushed metal in the middle of it where there was no brushed metal in 1992. It was in 93 with the SP Rookies and in football, and then also the Dufex and Pinnacle. That's where we started to see brushed metal. It wasn't really anywhere else, but here on this card, it's here. So this is a really impressive card, and yet it's on a pretty clunky design overall. I like the 2 images on either side, but there's nothing that really brings everything together. So the card has a really cool quality if you're not used to seeing it. Then it doesn't really carry too well. The 93 design is the one I usually think of in my mind, and this one is always a pleasant surprise every time I see it. So I think it's a really cool card and I really like it, but it doesn't have staying power. When I shift over to Score, you can see a very, very different design inspiration for what they were doing in Score Pinnacle. Over there, they wanted to make a really clean and really elegant design, something that was just very formal, well crafted. And that's exactly what this card is. I like the 2 images. I think that it's a great way that they balanced them on there. The headshot is really strong, and then the background image has a really cool quality with the single color, but the single color is also very bold, so it kind of holds it back too. It's kind of a combination of the 2, but I love the way that it comes across, and every time I look at it, I go, wow, this is an impressive insert card. It doesn't have an overall continuity, though, that really enlivens it. Here's what's really missing in both of these cards. They're not really fun. That's kind of the problem with these cards. They're not fun. And fun is definitely something we're going to be seeing a lot of in the actual list. Even before we get to the list, with my my honorable mention, my true honorable mention, which is the Upper Deck Fanimation cards, I mean, fun is quite literally all this card is. I mean, this is so cool. The idea of taking superhero comic books and NFL players and combining them together is a brilliant idea. And especially with football over all the other sports, they're already in battle armor, basically. And the way that they combined it together on these cards, these are just so cool. What they did over in basketball, I wasn't really a fan of it. But here with these football cards, I look at this and I go, dude, I wish that they'd done something with this. So there are a couple of cases where they have comic books and NFL athletes combined together. This has got to be the best because it has all of the energy, all the excitement of an actual comic book. It really does feel like it's pages of a comic book or a graphic novel. And in 1990, they did have the Super Pro comics that they created. That's not something I'm familiar with. I was never a comic book guy, so I never bothered to deal with that. The Tick is the only one I've ever cared about. But even though Super Pro didn't succeed, it still was a cool idea. But here with these, I look at this and I go, man, I really wish they'd done a graphic novel with this just for the art. I'd just like to see the art with all of them. Gorgeous. But the card does lack something, which is design. So it's all about the great images. And originally I had this in the top 5 up at, I think it was 3. And I slid it out because even though the images are fun, I would like to see some design in it. And that's what I'm going to see with all 5, which starts off with Upper Decks, Game Breakers. And here they got the holograms right. Finally. For some reason, Upper Deck had a real difficult time acing their solid hologram cards. They started off with the best hologram, but it was very difficult to get the lighting right. And then you had some different takes on how they would do holograms. The 91 football was a pretty good one, except it was kind of boring. Well, here they got everything perfect. I mean, just perfect. Number 1, the lighting is pretty strong, so you don't have to work too hard to get the light just right. It doesn't mean that the colors on the image read very robustly, but the card itself still holds up quite well. And then 2, it's got that wonderful, wonderful stone border around the outside on 2 sides. This is a border that shows exactly how to do a border on these cards. Love them, really gorgeous. And they have a really good 3D effect, good depth to it. The background with the football field is a phenomenal background. And then the shots of the players read so well. It's just, they really do succeed at just about every single thing on this card front. And if you don't have the light on it, you can still see the border, so it's actually useful. So, I mean, it's amazing that they absolutely nailed this all the way through. And even on the card back, you've got the rounded edges, which is great, but the card back reads so well. This card is 100% a success. And when I look at it, I'm so excited to see what they'll do in 1993. And they did nothing in 93, unfortunately. The 2 sets that would follow this were pretty dismal. And then they would just start burying them in cards, which, let's face it, burying a 3D effect, the hologram, into another card design, I think is a really good move. So they didn't need to do a full hologram following this. But I look at this and I go, man, I wish I could have seen what they would have done, even though I know, in my heart, I do know that they would have ruined it. But regardless, this is great. It's also at number 5 because it's still limited by being a hologram. Now, number 4 is where I'm probably going to get the most pushback because that's where I'm putting the Team Pinnacle cards for 1992. And look, in my defense, I could also have this at number 2. I almost put it at number 2, but I've got it here at number 4 for a reason. The stipple art is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. The images are great. The full bleed effect, a sensational design. The strips down at the bottom, I don't have a problem with them. I look at this card and I go, it's an out-and-out success. And sometimes when the images are right, I mean, look at Anthony Munoz, dude. Look at the lighting on that. That Anthony Munoz card is what shifted it up to number 2. But then Reggie White pulled it back to number 4. That's the problem with placing this card is, are you going by an individual image or are you going by the set? And there are a couple of images that are absolutely number 2 on this list. Most of the images are not. And so this card is kind of finicky in that way. But being at number 4 on this list is not a problem at all, because this list is an embarrassment of riches. If I've got the Score Dream Team cards out of the main honorable mention, that gives you an idea. All of these are great. But what do I have ahead? Well, I start off with Fleer All-Pro cards obviously for football. This is the card that truly shows that Fleer was on point. I almost would say this is the best insert that Fleer did in 1992, but I also have the basketball all-star cards as well, which were great in a different way. The basketball cards were a lot more fun. They were more vibrant and energetic. Whereas for this is elegant, formal, this is an ultra card that just happened to be in in Fleer packs. That's really kind of the way to describe it. It has not quite a lacquered surface, but it has a high gloss surface with some really good gold foil in it. The particular color of the blue is super elegant. They have a simple design in the middle, which almost feels kind of retro to me, kind of like an 89 or 90 insert, where they finally went, oh, you know what we should have done with that? We should have had some gold foil and a high gloss. It has that feel to it, and I think I'm thinking of the 1991 Ultra inserts when I'm looking at this pattern, but regardless, the way the card looks all the way across is just a gorgeous card. And I'm not going to talk about the card back, but absolutely a great success. I think that it has more consistency than Team Pinnacle. That's why I have it ahead. But regardless, it's definitely a top 4. I think it's at number 3. But at number 2, I have the Upper Deck Football Heroes cards. And this is, they nailed it. In 1992, we saw quite a few cases where they absolutely nailed it. And this is a great example. That whole stone theme is a brilliant move because in 1991, they had a design that seemed to be designed around Joe Montana and worked beautifully for those, but when you shift over to Namath, no, it didn't work anymore. Well, here they have a neutral ground where they have kind of a Roman pillar, kind of a color and quality to it, which does a great job of framing the images for both players. And because it's kind of neutral tones, it kind of gets out of the way. So those very lush and highly saturated shots just pop right out. And because there's so much border, it really focuses in the image itself and makes the image a lot more vibrant. And then you have the accoutrements that are designed into the stone where you're aware of them, but you're only going to look at them if you care to take the time. This is a card that does such a great job of just focusing in on the player. Looks gorgeous. And I also like that on the card back, they actually have team colors for the aesthetic design for the card back. So for Marino and Peyton fans, this works beautifully. This card is just front and back all the way around an absolutely phenomenal success for what it was supposed to do, which is to give you 9 cards of each player. Truly a success of that. But I gotta say that for me, number 1 is kind of without question, and that's the Pro Set Power Combos. And this card is one that really surprised me, not because I was surprised I would like it, but because I always forget that this card existed. See, Pro Set was never really all that great with inserts. In 89 and 90, they had their pack filler inserts, which were phenomenal. But when inserts were more of a random affair, Pro Set didn't really capture the spirit of inserts as well as Fleer and Upper Deck did. This card, it likewise doesn't really have the quality of inserts as we're used to, but it takes the whole design motif of Pro Set Power and it makes it better. All of these cards are pairs of players. It's combos, that's the whole point. So you have horizontal cards with 2 players on it, and the players don't pop out as much as they stand out. And that's the right combination, and then the ghosting behind is really good. The cards, though, have holofoil on it. And just like with the brushed metal, you didn't have holofoil anywhere. That meant that it had this wonderful, like kind of a ghost-like quality, where it's just kind of in there, and it's got this haunting, rich spirit that makes you want to really explore the cards. And that's what I would describe this card as. This is a card that I want to spend time exploring and just take it in completely and in every way. I think it's wonderful. Do I have a complaint? Well, setting aside the back, the only complaint I have is I don't think they had enough high power combos. And the reason I feel they should have more combos is, yeah, you got Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin. But we should have had Thurman Thomas and Andre Reed and Jerry Rice and John Taylor. If we had better names in this list, it would have been more exciting and more memorable. So this is a card I tend to forget about simply because it's too much like the regular set and it doesn't have much of a staying power. But man, it's a gorgeous card. And that's why I have it at number 1. So that's my list of the top 5 to 8 best insert card designs for football in 1992. I still have baseball to do, and then after that I'm going to look at all the sports and figure out the top 5, and for this one it'll be really the top 10, I think, the best insert designs across the span. And I'm looking forward to that primarily because I get to really compare sport to sport the top cards. So definitely look out for that video. If you haven't seen the other ranking videos that I've done, definitely check those out. Do subscribe if you haven't done so already, and thank you very much for watching.